Bottoms up. Hello, my name is Michael Knipp, and I am here to give you my February wrap-up. 1. I'm on a diet. 2. I get headaches if I get slightly dehydrated. 3. If I drink a lot of water, I won't think about the fact that I can't be eating food. 4. I talk a lot during these videos, so I get thirsty. So freaking heck yeah, it's water. First up, in February, I finished the Narnia read-along that was being hosted by Faye from Mystery Date with a Book, and that was so fun. I made a video compiling my thoughts on the series as a whole, as well as my history with the series. You can check that out. I'll put it in a link. It's up here. I always forget that's up there. Short version from the last 3 books, that is The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, The Silver Chair, and Last Battle. Voyage of the Dawn Treader is my favorite Narnia book of all time at this point. It's changed throughout the years. The Silver Chair, also one of my favorites. The Last Battle depresses me to no end. Like I said, you want the in-depth thoughts, you can go check out that other video. I've read this series so many times in my life, it was nice to revisit it again. Next up, Bloody Rose. I talked in my last wrap-up about Kings of the Wild. I thought that book was really funny and also heartwarming, and it was a great little adventure. It's been getting a lot more hype recently on BookTube that I've seen. Daniel loved it. Miss Richards Reads just loved it. I've been seeing lots of people talk about Kings of the Wild. I'm glad that everybody's gonna enjoy that book. I read the sequel, Bloody Rose. Daniel actually just released a video review for this. It's gonna be yesterday by the time you see this video. I would agree with many of his thoughts. It's not as good as Kings of the Wild, but it is still really fun. I ended up liking it at the end. I didn't know how I felt about some of the characters when we're kind of going through the story. They're generally less endearing right away. Because of the nature of that story, we spend most of our time with a completely different set of main characters than Saga from the first book. And for the most part, I had a harder time, like I said, connecting with those characters at the beginning. As a side note, for those people who have read it, I'm pretty sure that Kira was completely just Jack from Mass Effect 2. Did anybody else get the same vibe? That she was basically Jack from Mass Effect 2. Once again, there was a lot of humor in that book, and it still managed to get a really heartfelt ending. A lot of the fight scenes in Nicholas Ames' writing is just really cool, and I like the way that he is able to sort of juggle action and humor and heartfelt moments in a way that I don't think most people could pull off. The kind of not secret about those books is that they're really kind of like music metaphors. So the first book is kind of like 70s rock. This book is kind of like 80s rock. And then the new book that he's working on is going to be 90s themed rock. And this is the era that I would be most familiar with. 1, because I was alive. 2, because I've listened to more of the music. Probably because I was alive. So I'm still really looking forward to the next one, even though I didn't like Bloody Rose as much as Kings of the Wild. Analog 2020 allowed me to read Anne of Avonlea, the second in the Anne of Green Gables saga. I think most of the people that I've talked to directly about this book didn't like it as much as Anne of Green Gables. I don't really know if that's my opinion. I have a hard time comparing something in a series like this where it's not super plot focused, it's mostly character focused, and we're just seeing an extended telling of this character's story. I do think that because Anne is growing along with the series, some of the things that I liked about Anne's personality when she was a young child were gone, but there were other characters that sort of filled those gaps in Anne of Avonlea. Additionally, what I love is we get to see Anne continue to grow up, and she is becoming more responsible, and she is doing more things, and she is figuring out her place in society, but she doesn't completely lose the charm that makes her Anne. And that is just so wonderful to read, and it's a perfect example of how someone can grow into greater responsibilities of being an adult, but still keep some of that childhood wonder that makes them interesting and kind and empathetic to other people. It's just a wonderful story. I was so happy with it. I don't want to spoil I don't know if you can spoil books that are that old, but there was a romance that comes up in that book. There wasn't really any romance in the first one, but there was a romance that comes up in that book that I thought was so sweet, and it really got to me. I was cheering these people on. I wanted it to happen so bad, and of course it did, and it was wonderful. And it made me very happy. Once again, this is a series that I really never thought I would like. It's a classic. I don't love it. It's historical fiction. I don't love it. It's not fantasy or sci-fi, which is always a little bit more of a pull for me, but I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I recommend it to anyone who's just looking for something that is wholesome and heartwarming. My Life as a Smashed Burrito with Extra Hot Sauce is the first book in the Wally McDougall series. I recommended it for Middle Grade March. You can go check out the big Middle Grade March recommendations video that Krista from Books and Jams did. She allowed me to be part of that. When I saw that one of the prompts was Story About Stories, and I was thinking about the middle grade books that I've read through the years. This series popped into my head because it was like something I read through many of the years of my childhood. But before I recommended it, I wanted to read it again. I realized it was on Kindle Unlimited and it was free, so I read it real quick. It's a very short read before I recommended it. That way I would know if it was still good. In my brain, as someone who has not read the Diary of the Wimpy Kid series or seen the movies, but I kind of get the vibe, this is kind of the same vibe as like Diary of a Wimpy Kid before that happened. You have this really dorky kid who has aspirations to become a film writer, and he learns the lessons of growing up and being a kid with his dorky friends, and it's really funny. Like, the author wrote it to be kind of a humorous thing, but it's kind of that type of humor where like this is for the adults, because the kids probably won't even realize how ironic some of it is because they're still learning the same lessons as this kid. Nevertheless, it was a super short read. I had a fun time reading it. It brought me a little bit back to my childhood. One of the weirdest things I did notice about the book is that they are doing some form of modernization of the series for its re-release on Kindle Unlimited. The main thing that I noticed was there was a point where a character was talking about looking like a dork, and he said that his chest wasn't as big and muscular as Chris Pratt. The book was published in 1993 originally, and I didn't read it then. I was only 3 years old then, but I read it later on. But Chris Pratt still was not a relevant thing when I read it, and he definitely wasn't a relevant thing in 1993. So I was very confused about it, and I looked up the author's Facebook page, and he specifically said that there were things that were modernized. One of the things that I had forgotten was that one of the characters, who listens to music all the time on headphones, in the original books, listened to it on a Walkman tape player. So they took some of those references and kind of modernized them for the new release. They're trying to sell it to a new generation. I kind of get it, but at the same time, I kind of would have appreciated some of those antiquated references. Let's start our battle cries for revisionist history. February was a landmark moment in my life because I found a new favorite book of all time. That book is called The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. It's my first Sanderson read. It was amazing. Like, comment, and subscribe, my people. I loved it so much, I was able to use my zealousness to convince at least 2 of my friends to read it. I've been trying to convince everyone I can on BookTube to read it, and as soon as I was able, I recorded a giant video where I talked about this book spoiler-free and with spoilers. You can go check out that review if you would like to. I highly recommend it, mostly because I want you to read The Way of Kings, my new favorite book of all time. The book I love so much that I bought the physical copy after owning the ebook copy and the audiobook copy. It's a truly epic fantasy that is 1,000 pages long that never had me bored, ever. Next, The Dragon Reborn. The Dragon Reborn is the 3rd book in the Wheel of Time series. 1, because I don't want to spoil the other Wheel of Times books, and 2, because I actually want to make a video kind of compiling my thoughts on the first 3 books. I won't go super in depth, but I will say one of the greatest things about book 3 in the series is that there is a main character that we kind of stop focusing on as much, and we spend time with some of the other characters. Also, we visit a lot of places in the world that we've seen before with the new perspective of major events having changed the course of history. So places that we saw the first time with the state of the world being one way, after the paradigm shifts that have happened in the first 2 books, we get to see those same cities and it's very different. And that kind of carries some serious weight when you're reading books that are so big. You get to know a place and then seeing it in a different kind of time period under a different set of circumstances makes the world feel real in a way that a lot of books that are smaller and shorter just can't pull off. They just can't do it. Additionally, because the books are so long and there's so many of them, we are starting to see major character arcs start happening, and we're able to get more nuance out of the characters that we do understand. So characters are changing, and my opinions of the characters are constantly changing with it. I had some interactions on Twitter recently with people that hated Matt from the first book. This book, I feel like Matt really begins to shine. Other people disliked characters in this book they liked before. I think I'm just now beginning to realize that I don't need to necessarily have all my opinions about these characters fully fleshed out, because the characters aren't fully fleshed out. They're growing and they're changing, just like real people, and our opinions of them can change with the actions that we see them do in the circumstances that they're placed in. And Robert Jordan does a really good job of setting up the stakes as being really high and setting up ways for the characters to be forced to stretch themselves and interact with each other in new ways. And even though I still like The Way of Kings more than The Wheel of Time so far, it's different enough and still good enough that I definitely want to continue with that series. I love The Wheel of Time so far. Last but not least, Leviathan Wakes, the first book in the Expanse series. Now thankfully, once again, BookTube is awesome. I have some book friends that are reading this book or have just finished this book and they're on the second book. We're all around the same area. I also have a real life friend who loves the Expanse TV show who's rereading the series, and he's about to finish the first book. I just love it when I'm able to discuss these books with people who have actually experienced them as well. That's what makes this community so powerful. Now, I know nothing about the TV show, so I can't speak for it. I also want to make a dedicated Leviathan Wakes review. But what I'll say here is that I had really no idea what this was going to be, except I heard that it was an epic space opera. I've enjoyed some of those in the past. What I was pleasantly surprised by is that this book is half a noir detective story, and then half a different type of sci-fi mystery. And it's a blend of those two things that I've never experienced before, and I thought was really compelling. I would not have finished this book in time to have completed my full estimated, goal February TBR if this book wasn't such a page turner. Even though for a significant portion, like the first 25 to 30% of this book, I kind of had no idea what the bigger plot was or where we were really headed with anything, and mysteries kind of kept getting layered on top of each other. Something about the story still compelled me to just keep pushing through. I never once wanted to stop or put it down. I was never confused in a bad way. And once the story got going, it just kept going and the pace was breakneck. The characters became interesting and you got to know them. They are slightly rigid to some character tropes, but not in a bad way. And the story takes a direction that I did not really see coming at all. For a significant portion of this book, the book is really grounded sci-fi, and then it just takes a complete left turn that I appreciate, wasn't expecting, and now I just have no idea where the series is going to go from here. It's gonna be interesting, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. Like when your friend's oh yeah, he's an interesting guy. I'm not saying it like that. I'm saying it's super fascinating, and I can't wait to get to that book so much that I put it on the second book for The Expanse on this month's TBR, even though there's no freaking way in heck that can even happen. Leviathan Wakes is very good, and if you haven't read it and you're looking for a space opera, I recommend it. Look for a video review coming out for that book hopefully soon. And that was my very productive February TBR completed wrap up. Thank you so much to the people who have been reading some of these books as well. We've been able to have discussions. You guys are awesome. Thank you for watching my videos. If you like them, please leave a thumbs up. If you don't, leave a thumbs down. Please leave a comment if you've read any of these books, or if you have a question about any of these books, you might want to read them or something. I'll answer anything. And if you would like to see more videos from me, please remember to subscribe. I would love to see you again. Once again, I love you all. Thank you for watching. Please come back again and have a nice day. Also, do you like eggs on your burgers?
Sleep, no one ever get enough. Always looking out tired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. If it don't show up, I might get fired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. Always looking out tired. Sleep, no one ever get enough. If I don't show up, I might get fired.